Lori Daybell has lived a very bizarre life, surrounded by multiple marriages and premature deaths. She's been married 5 times. She had 3 children. Now just 3 of those husbands are alive and only 1 child. Her children, JJ and Tylee, were murdered and buried in her 5th husband's backyard. She was convicted of those murders, and prosecutors say she conspired with her 5th husband, Chad, and her brother, Alex Cox. Alex Cox is now dead after an alleged medical episode while on the toilet. Chad is locked up in Idaho and is now on trial for the murder of his first wife, Tammy, and Lori's children, JJ and Tylee. Meanwhile, Lori is locked up in Arizona, waiting for her trial for the murder of her 4th husband, Charles, who was JJ's dad and Tylee's stepfather. Tylee's dad is Joseph Ryan, Lori's 3rd husband, who died mysteriously at home. Before he died, Joseph was the victim of an attack by Lori's brother, Alex, who also is involved in the murder of Charles. Alex shot Charles and claimed self-defense. At the time of that shooting, 5 people were there: Charles, Alex, Tylee, JJ, and Lori. And now, she is the only one still alive. Tonight, we take a closer look at the genesis of Lori's murder spree, the shooting death of her husband, Charles. Was Chad involved? What did he know, and when did he know it? We'll find the answers and get the latest from court as we continue our investigation into the Doomsday cult killings.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. When we first started covering this story, it was about a missing child, little JJ. But in the days, weeks, months, and years of following this story, every development, so much more has come to light. And the bottom line to what we're talking about here is a lot of dead bodies. Lots of them. Husbands, children, siblings, all gone. You wouldn't think this would be possible, that you could live a life and all these people, and you can look at these faces. No one is of the age where you would just seemingly pass away. These are all premature deaths, some of them very premature for the children. But it seems from where I'm sitting and covering this story that most, if not all of them, should likely be alive. But not all of these deaths are necessarily involved in the murder allegations. Lori's been convicted of 3. She's been convicted of the murder of 2 of her children and her new husband's first wife. Now, she's also facing charges for the murder of her 4th husband, Charles. So she's in on a lot of it, a lot of it. Victim number 1 was Charles. So before all these people lost their lives, well, Joseph Ryan, husband number 3, lost his life before Charles, but there was no criminal charge or allegation made in that case. So I wouldn't consider Joseph Ryan at this point a victim. I still think they need to look a little more closely at it, but Charles Vallow is really victim number 1. This is what starts all of it. Lori's husband, estranged husband, however you want to describe their relationship at the time, they were still legally married. He was JJ's father, and he was a stepfather to Tylee, and he was supporting this family. Hardworking guy. So tonight what we're going to explore is the death of Charles Vallow and sort of the genesis of when Chad and Lori together, according to prosecutors, began to plot, plan, and take action. Like, when did this all really begin? What did Chad know about the death of Charles? How involved or not involved was he? It's an important question. It's an important issue, especially now that Chad is on trial. Because his defense is It's not me. It's Lori. It's her brother, Alex. And the first victim was shot by Lori's brother, Alex, Charles. So during this hour, we're going to try to go through that a little bit to have a better understanding and see how it's all going to play in front of this jury. Chad Daybell's facing the death penalty in this case. Well, it was another big day. A lot of talk about Charles. Here's a look at some of the biggest moments.
In reviewing police reports from Chandler Police Department and body cam footage, I believe from Gilbert Police Department, Charles Vallow makes comments that his wife, Lori Vallow, was referring to him as variations on the name Ned Schneider.
I think you've already talked about the malachite. I believe you said that's a stone that was original, that ended up in Chad and Lori's wedding bands or wedding
That's
rings.
correct, yes.
Well, I guess let me ask it this way. On May 7th, was Tammy still alive?
Yes, both Charles and Tammy were still alive at this point. JJ had a service dog at the time, and this search occurred roughly 2 weeks after the death of Charles Vallow. So to attempt to sell a service dog for a child after the death of his father seemed of interest to us.
And the next search there?
August 25th, 2019, wedding bands made of malachite.
Did that stand out to you for the same reason?
It did, although at this point, Charles Vallow is no longer alive.
Was Tammy Daybell still alive?
She was.
Alex had contacted 911 and reported that he had shot his brother-in-law, Charles Vallow, in self-defense. I noticed the body of a Caucasian male, later identified to be Charles Vallow. North of where he was laying, there was an aluminum baseball bat, and there were 2 .45 caliber casings that were recovered. I did see one wound consistent with a bullet wound in the front lower left quadrant of his torso. The AED pad that was placed in the center of Charles's chest was removed, and an additional wound consistent with a bullet wound was noticed in the center of his chest. There were 2 additional wounds on his back consistent with bullet holes. He indicated, like I stated, that he was standing and fired 2 shots standing, and while Charles was in front of him. The autopsy reports and the scene evidence, the first shot fired on Charles would have been the center of his chest, exiting the back and then lodging in the baseboard. The second shot fired at Charles would have been while he was laying down on the ground. This is another email from Charles Vallow, a Gmail account to chad.daybell@gmail.com. Chad, I'm Lori's husband, but I gathered you already knew this. She sent an email yesterday, supposedly written by me, to KK Walker, inviting you to Arizona next week and to ghostwrite a book I'm supposedly working on. It's preposterous. I am not paying anybody for anything, and I am not writing a book. Either you or Lori need to tell me what's going on, or this will be exposed for all to see. And does your wife know you have several of Lori's dance videos? Is a message from Charles to Lori on June 30th, 2019 at 8:42. It just keeps killing me. Maybe that's your goal. How can you live with yourself destroying our life? Now add Chad Daybell family, and you've got a home run. Lying has become second nature to you. You have destroyed me. I've never been lower in my life. It's you that has done it. Please tell me why, please. I deserve an apology from you. Please respect that much.
It absolutely started with that affair. I mean, it snowballed from there. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft joining us live from Boise, Idaho tonight. Kelly, great to see you. Trying to figure out the genesis of all of this, and is Lori leading this thing? Is Chad? What is each of their roles in what happened here? A lot of talk about Charles Vallow today, and I've identified him really as the first victim in all of this. What did we hear today?
Well, hi there, Vinny. We did hear a lot about Charles Vallow today, Lori's 4th husband. And what we heard were text messages and emails, and this is when he starts to question Lori about his suspicions about the love affair that she supposedly was having with Chad Daybell. So he starts to really get suspicious about this, and this is what we heard about today in court. We also heard about the shooting death of Charles Vallow, and how at that time when Alex Cox was there, Ty Lee, as well as JJ and Lori. And then, of course, as you mentioned during the opening, Lori is the only one that is still alive, and she, of course, is behind bars in Arizona. On cross-examination, John Pryor, Chad Daybell's defense attorney, was talking with Nicole Heidman. She is the FBI agent that was on the stand, and she really took a look at a lot of the text messages. She was tasked with really investigating the disappearance of JJ and Ty Lee. Here's what she had to say when asked about JJ and Ty Lee.
It seems then that at least Ty Lee Ryan and JJ Vallow would have knowledge, or at least information, as it relates to the murder of Charles Vallow. Would that seem logical?
Yes, it would.
Okay. So if someone's looking and realizing that their children witnessed the murder of their father by their own brother, that's a motive for a number of things, right?
I suppose.
Okay. It's also a motive on 7/21 of 2019 to come up with a reason to get rid of a child if that child witnessed the murder of their stepfather, correct?
Potentially.
So a lot of different theories as to who ultimately were supposed to be the victims of Lori, because it started here with Charles Vallow, as you said, and then eventually the disappearance of JJ and Ty Lee, and then they ended up dead. And obviously, as you just heard John Pryor trying to get out from the witness there, if they had witnessed this, that would be a motive for them to then be deceased. But also we get money involved, so a big financial aspect in this case as well, Vinny. But a lot of that information was getting out there today.
And this was a case where someone was shot and killed. Ty Lee is a witness. JJ is a witness. Alex is the shooter. Lori is the beneficiary of all this, or at least I think she thought she was, because another big part of today was about life insurance. I think Lori was under the presumption that she was going to get a big payday if Charles died.
Well, certainly the text messages would indicate that, Vinny, and one in which she sent Chad saying, "It's just a spear through my heart," that she found out that Charles Vallow, her husband, had changed the beneficiary. So she was not happy about that, to say the least. This was a $1 million life insurance policy that he had. And really, in a way, you could say it's his final revenge against Lori. Charles's final revenge, because he had suspicions of what was going to happen to him. He had confronted Lori, talking about her odd behavior, talking about his suspicions that she was having an affair with Chad Daybell. So why don't we listen to some more of this from court today?
Lori sent Chad a message. "I just got the letter from the insurance company saying that I am not the beneficiary. It's a spear through my heart. Who do you think he changed it to? Brandon or probably Kay? He left nothing for JJ." Chad responded to Lori, "Wow, that's terrible. There's no way to find out?" Lori sent Chad a message to Chad. "Nope, he can change it anytime he wants. He's the agent, and anyone can change their beneficiary anytime with their own signature. I'm thinking it must be Kay." Chad sent a message to Lori. It will be interesting if it got changed after he had 2 bullets in his chest."
And who did Charles Vallow change his beneficiary to? Well, you're looking at Larry Woodcock right there. His wife, who is Charles's sister. So she ended up being the beneficiary in this. And there has been reports that when Charles mentioned to her that he wanted her to be the beneficiary, that she said, "No, leave it to the children, JJ and Ty Lee." But then he said he's worried what Lori might do to them. And he was right. So he did change it to Kay, so she was the beneficiary of that life insurance policy, Vinny.
Trusted his sister at that point, more than his own wife. Another issue that I've always been interested in, excuse me, sorry, allergies, folks, allergies, I'm okay. The relationship between Chad Daybell and Alex Cox, because Alex Cox, we've always heard described as Lori's protector, and we know he acted out against one of her prior husbands. Joseph Ryan went to jail for that. We know that he shot and killed Charles Vallow. So I always wondered if Chad Daybell could have been potentially scared of Alex, or what their relationship was like. But today there was evidence of a blessing that Chad gave to Alex.
Yeah, you have to wonder what his mindset was when it came to Alex, but they played in court today, so the jurors got to listen to it. It was very dry in how Chad Daybell was delivering this blessing that he was given to Alex Cox, just talking to him, telling him he was chosen in a way to take care of his sister Lori and to be a protector of her. Why don't we go ahead and listen to some of that blessing now?
Alexander Lamar Cox, on this special day, I lay my hands upon your head to give you a patriarchal blessing. As part of the member of the Church of the Firstborn, as the second coming approaches, you will know when it's time to move to the other side. This body that has served you well will lay down one day, and you'll pass.
Alex Cox died shortly after this blessing, so about 2 weeks after this blessing, in which Chad Daybell told him that he was going to be blessed with goddesses and many other things that he talked to him about. At the time, Alex was living with his wife, and she said during Lori's trial that when she confronted him about Charles Vallow being shot, Alex Cox shot him, said he shot him in self-defense, that Alex's response to her, she said, was bizarre. He said that, well, he was a zombie, and she talked about during trial that she thought he would be a lot more upset, or upset at all, about the fact that he supposedly shot someone in self-defense, but his response was, well, Charles, that was Lori's fourth husband, was a zombie.
Wow. What a day. Kelly Craft in the middle of it in Boise, Idaho. Thank you so much. I want to bring in a special guest joining us tonight in Portland, Oregon, the attorney who represents the Gonsalves family in the Idaho college student murders case, and at one point represented J.J. Vallow's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock. Attorney Shannon Gray with us. Shannon, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
You know, as I listen to the genesis of everything that is happening here, it brings me right back to what prosecutors said at Lori's trial, that this was about money, love, power, the money from the insurance. Lori thought she was getting it from Charles, but your former client, Kay, was the beneficiary. The torrid affair that Lori and Chad were having, and then this belief system that they had in forming and running this cult. I mean, ultimately, that's what's happening here, and we're hearing it again inside that courtroom.
Well, there's a lot going on there. Just take your pick as far as what the prosecution wants to do with this case as far as motive. You've got the money, you've got the kids, as witnesses, you've got her brother maybe being in trouble. You've got a lot of things going on there. So, I mean, I think they can, pick which one they want, but they've got to present all the evidence to kind of, summarize how many motives and how many potential things could have gone wrong if they hadn't done the things that they thought were the right things to do. So.
Now, one thing that we heard from John Pryor in his cross-examination and really struck a chord with us here in the newsroom tonight, because it's right in line, seemingly, where the defense is going. Lori and Alex and the kids are all there when Charles is shot and killed. Alex is dead. the kids are dead. Could it be that Lori and Alex first killed the kids because they were witnesses to what happened to Charles? Like in any standard crime case that you have, if there are witnesses to the crime, you get rid of the witnesses. So could Chad separate himself from Lori and Alex and say, hey, well, wait a minute, this was about the murder of Charles and the witnesses were taken out?
Well, I think the timeline will probably be important as far as the deaths of the children and the things that are going on with that. But, obviously on the defense side, it's a tough case. And it's one of those things where you've got to try to be creative as you can when it comes to defending someone that has a lot of evidence against them in a number of different ways. And remember, the juries only have to pick one real motive or one connection. It doesn't always have to be the A to the B. It could be the A to the B to the C to the D. So I think it's an uphill battle right now.
I agree 1,000%. Shannon Gray, thanks so much for taking the time tonight. I appreciate it. When we come back, folks, again, we're going to look at the death of Charles Vallow, what was happening before, what happened after, plus coming up next hour.
In Norfolk County, Massachusetts, day one of a trial unlike any other. Karen Reed, an accused cop killer with an army of supporters who believe she was framed by the police. Did she murder her boyfriend, Officer John O'Keefe, or is this whole thing a huge cover-up?
It feels we're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. Just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just to be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve.
We are underway in the trial of Doomsday prophet Chad Daybell.
Prosecutors say they will seek the death penalty against him.
Investigators have recovered human remains at Chad Daybell's residence.
There's no way, Logan, I can never come up with this.
His wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, has already been convicted.
Now, will her husband end up with the same fate?
It's just so hard to know where the truth ends.
It's the Doomsday prophet, Chad Daybell, on trial.
Long story. She's had kind of a breakthrough reality. She thinks you're LDS?
Yes.
She thinks she's married to Moroni in the past. This is her
You think she's what?
Married to Moroni, the top of the temple.
Charles Vallow reaching out to police, and it was more than once, talking about his wife who was doing these things. He still ended up dead, shot and killed by Lori's brother, his brother-in-law, Alex. That was January 31st of 2019. Let's flash forward to that summer, okay? Charles found an email on Lori's computer. You got to follow the bouncing ball here. So Charles finds an email. This is a fake email written by Lori to Chad, but pretending that it's from Charles. Lori is pretending to be Charles, writing an email to Chad, not to fool Chad, but as a ruse to get Chad to come to town and visit her. Hello, Chad. I hope you're doing well. This is Charles Vallow from Arizona. We really enjoyed having you stay with us back in November when you came to the Preparing a People conference. I'm willing to pay you well to help me get this book into shape as my ghostwriter. Is there any way you can come here for a couple of days and help me get the book underway? I would gladly fly you down here next week before the holiday and cover your expenses. You could stay in our guest room like before, or in a hotel if you prefer. With admiration, Charles. Well, take a listen to Detective Nathan Duncan now. Reading some messages from Charles to Lori written in June of 2019.
Is he with whom you're having an affair? He did not stay with us in Arizona in November. Who are you lying to now? Trying to destroy another family? You're evil, period. I may take JJ back to Houston unless you have a great explanation for all of this. I will not let him be a party to your apostasy. Just so you know, I have Tammy, Chad's wife, email address. I will send a copy of my email you sent to KK Walker. Tammy will know what you're up to. I'm sure you're up by now. You have until 10 a.m. your time to respond, or I send the emails and texts to Tammy.
Guess what? Charles then sent an email to Tammy. So Chad's wife getting an email from Lori's husband. They're both dead now, but not in June of 2019. Tammy, my name is Charles Vallow. This is what Charles sent to Tammy. I have some vital and disturbing information regarding your husband and my wife, Lori. This is your work email, so I'll wait to send you the, quote, evidence that is very disturbing. You may call or email me from the address where you can receive the information. I apologize to be the one sending this, but something has to be done. I feel it's best if I shed some light on the issue. Regards, Charles Vallow. Is this all? This is the genesis now, right? The affair has been uncovered, and now things are happening. Let's bring in our guests. Joining me in Salt Lake City, Utah, host of the Mormon Stories podcast, John DeLynn is with us. In Boise, Idaho, there he is, juror number 18 from Lori Vallow Daybell's trial, and the author of a book on that trial, Money, Power, and Sex. Tom Evans is with us. Also in Salt Lake City, private investigator Jason Jensen. Great to see everyone. John, I want to begin with you because right off the top, we heard from Charles Vallow. Lori is having this apparent break from reality, according to Charles, where she thinks Charles is Moroni. Then at another point, believes that he is like Ned Schneiderman. And then at another point is Hiplos, and he's a zombie, and we cast spells on him, and he has to die. Does any of that shock you?
I mean, yeah, it's all shocking. And in one sense, it's kind of Mormonism taken to an absurd extreme. On the other hand, almost every doctrine or teaching or practice that Chad or Lori had was rooted in Orthodox mainstream Mormonism. So do Mormons believe in spiritual visitations? Yes. Do Mormons believe that Moroni, the Book of Mormon figure, is a resurrected angel that visits people? Yes, because he visited Joseph Smith. Do Mormons believe in patriarchal blessings? I had a patriarchal blessing when I was 16. Do Mormons believe in these sort of celestial spiritual marriages? Joseph Smith did them. So on the one hand, you could absolutely make a case that Chad and Lori are fringe Mormon cultists. On the other hand, pretty much everything they did and taught starts with the core Mormon doctrine or teaching, and then they just take it one step further. And, you know, you have to wonder to some extent how much religion plays a part in the justification for these crimes.
Tom Evans, juror number 18. From your perspective, you heard all the evidence in the case against Lori, deliberated with your fellow jurors. Where do you see the genesis of this killing spree that occurred? You know, we keep getting back to that theme of money, power, and sex, but where do you see the genesis of all of this?
Well, I think it started when they met in St. George in 2018, but I think they had to kill Charles because of what we've been talking about. He was getting to Tammy, so Tammy would know what was going on, all very sneaky. But so Charles had to go, and then it just kind of wound from there.
Did you see one having more influence than the other? Because a lot of this trial is going to be about that, right? Chad trying to distance himself from Lori and her brother Alex, that she's the manipulator. How did you see that?
Yeah, that's everything John Pryor is trying to do in court. But it's not going to work. I mean, it is really complicated. Lori was definitely in charge in some ways, but also Chad was the religious zealot guru guy who, you know, he had all the answers. He had the dark and light scale. He had all of this stuff. So it's going to be really hard for him to get away, you know, get off of all of that.
Jason Jensen, I labeled him as victim number one, Charles Vallow. Now, there may have been another victim at some point, but there's no criminal charges there. another day we'll deal with that. Victim one, and this was a self-defense case. No one gets arrested initially. The stories are taken, they're investigating it, but then so much more happens afterwards. Lori has been charged in that. How do you see Chad's involvement in all of this, Jason? How do you see Chad's role in the buildup to that day when Alex fires the weapon and shoots and kills Charles?
Well, Vinny, all of this is sorted, right? We see a genesis is a poetic way to put it, as you described it. What we have is Lori clearly had an infatuation with Chad, and that's what the email alludes to, and she's married to Charles. So earlier, you guys were talking about Mormonism, and the fact is, it's just a coincidence that there's Mormon attributes here, because if they all lived in France, they'd all speak French. So they have to live within the culture they're familiar with, and they're going to die by the culture as well. So when you're talking a religion that really believes in marriage, and the only way to terminate the marriage ethically, you know, in the eyes of church and members, is to die. Well, now we know why all these victims end up dying is because Charles had to die to release Lori to marry Chad. Well, Chad can't marry her. He's married to Tammy, so Tammy had to go. So the question is, who puts all these murders into action? We know that Chad benefits from it, but did he actually have a hand in organizing it? And one of the advantages that Chad has going forward, as John Pryor's demonstrating, is he's cloaked by the presumption of innocence, and he's got someone to blame. He can sit back and say, it's Lori's kids. Lori started all this. It was Lori's husband. So all of it can really be placed into Lori's lap unless Lori comes forward or the evidence really has a smoking gun tied to Chad.
I get it. And in one hand, you have the presumption of innocence, and in Lori, she's already been convicted. Guests are staying with us. When we come back, we'll take a look at the day Charles Vallow was shot and killed.
You need police or paramedics?
Both. I'm in police and an ambulance.
What's the emergency there?
I got in a fight with my brother-in-law, and I shot him in self-defense.
We just moved in here.
Gotcha. How long have you guys lived here?
I'm sorry?
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us very well.
Gotcha.
Like, hi, neighbor, sorry.
Nothing like giggling after your estranged husband's been shot and killed, the father of your son, and he's in the house right there. Nothing like giggling. Unbelievable. That's the day that Charles Vallow was shot and killed. Now, let's take a look at Alex Cox. You can see what he looked like. Sitting on the curb, just sort of waiting and apparently rubbing a little boo-boo on the back of his head that he has. Oh, look at that. Oh, the humanity. Unbelievable. I want you to take a listen to this because this is Chad Daybell's trial. So after the shooting, after he's shot and killed, he makes a call about cremating someone. Let's listen. It's really a bizarre call, especially when you listen closely to what he calls himself. Let's watch.
Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm assisting with their calls. How can I help you today?
We just had a death in the family, and we really don't want anything but a cremation and then to send the cremains to a family in Louisiana. Just a simple, nothing other than a cremation and sending him to his family for a service in Louisiana. So is there any way to know a ballpark price on that?
Yes, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Okay, let me transfer you over to the director who can assist you with the pricing. What is your name, please?
It is Chad Daybell.
How do you spell the last name, please?
Dayball, Daybell.
How are you related to the person who passed?
I'm his nephew.
And then also, this is for the Valley of the Suns in Chandler, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, he lives there in Chandler. I live in Iowa, so I'm just trying to help out.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, what is your uncle's name for reference, please?
He is John Daybell.
And last name?
Well, Dabal.
Okay.
The same. John. Uh-huh.
Does he have a middle name?
Myron.
He's so full of it. Myron. He's such a bad liar. John Dehlin, just listening to that phone call, what are you hearing from Chad Daybell?
Oh my gosh. Like, it seems so obvious that he's an accomplice in all the bad things that are happening. And, I'll just refer back to something that Jason said earlier. He might be right that this is all just a coincidence, that the Mormon angle isn't really influential here. That may be true. It's also true that sometimes it takes, religious justification helps people do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. And there is this notion within Mormonism, this tradition of, quote, lying for the Lord, where if you feel like you're on God's errand, you're allowed to lie. Joseph Smith did it. Joseph Smith married 22 women before he ever told his first wife that he had brought on 22 other wives. How did he justify marrying 22 women and lying to his wife the whole time? Well, he said God told him. And so, it's weird to see Chad Daybell lie in such a cavalier, obnoxious, ineffective way. But if he believed that he was on God's errand, then he would just be doing what others did before him.
Let me ask you, Tom Evans, juror number 18 from Lori Vallow's trial. The name of your book and the theme from the prosecution was money, power, and sex. If you had to rank them as the driving force in what happened here, no ties, you have to rank them. How would they go 1, 2, and 3?
In Chad's mind, I guess I would have to start with sex. And then money, I don't know, maybe sex, power, and money.
I want to take a listen here, Jason, to Detective Nathan Duncan reading a message from Chad to Lori. And this is very, very revealing, I think.
This is a message from Chad to Lori on 7/26/2019 at 8:13 p.m. Tonight I figured out who I feel like. I'm a grown-up version of Harry Potter who has to live with the Dudleys in his little space under the stairs. Every few weeks, I get to escape and have amazing adventures with my goddess lover. But then I have to return to my place under the stairs, feeling trapped. But I sense permanent freedom is coming.
And this message would have been just 15 days after Charles' death?
Yes.
And was Tammy Daybell still alive at this time?
Yes.
Oh, Jason Jensen, that doesn't look good, does it? He's sensing his freedom before Tammy is dead. Before Tammy is dead, Jason.
Well, Vinny, that's one way to interpret it. Through the lens of a prosecutor, I would agree with you. From the defense perspective, he's talking about the future he foresees with Lori. It doesn't mean a death is certain for Tammy necessarily. He might be planning a divorce. We'd have to.
Oh, that's not happening. That's not happening. He can't even sell that with a straight face. He can't sell that with a straight face. But yeah, I get where the argument's going, or maybe her health was failing, right? John Dehlin, we only have about 30 seconds left here. But again, he says, I sense. And this is, I think, one thing that Chad Daybell really leans on, is these visions and senses that he has.
Yeah, Mormons are taught that their feelings or their thoughts are the Holy Ghost or Satan. And clearly, Chad doesn't think he's influenced by Satan. So he's been conditioned to believe that the thoughts and feelings in his heart, in his mind, in other areas of his body are really from God and from the Holy Ghost. The only other thing I'll say is the book is called Money, Sex, and Power. I wish it said Money, Sex, Power, and Faith, or Money, Sex, Power, and Religion. Because I think Chad believes he's on God's errand. He calls her a goddess. That's a Mormon teaching that Mormons will become gods someday. So there it is again, the core fundamental Orthodox Mormon teaching that's clearly informing Chad.
John Dehlin, Mormon Stories Podcast, Tom Evans, number 18. Your book's coming out. Jason Jensen, thank you all so much.